Hello everyone and welcome back to another Strategoi video. We're back with another table talk, our monthly, that is totally not monthly video, where we kind of chat about what's up, and we always choose one theme for that video. And this time around it's the LVO because, as you can see, we have a new co-host, or an extra co-host I should say. Nick, you've been on the channel so many times, but I think this is the first time that people actually get to see your face.
Yes, and I promise I'm not actually this well dressed most of the time. Coming straight from work, and don't worry, they gave me plenty of shit beforehand.
That's
So
totally lies. Nick told me beforehand that he really wanted to dress to impress you
true.
guys,
I
while I'm
hope
totally in
this wins
vacation
your
mode with
heart.
sweatpants on.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if it's any consolation, the first time we did a video, Jonas, was for the Ideneth review, and I actually came dressed with a tiki shirt and with
Right.
a painkiller, so a tiki drink. I was ready to go. So even if Nick had done this, he hasn't tried as hard as I did.
That is true.
I didn't put a costume on.
Try hard. What's
For-
that?
I didn't put a costume on, no.
Yeah.
For everyone wanting to see Ryan's tiki shirt, we didn't end up recording with video back then, so it was just for us. So you can't find it. All right, so as per usual, we're first going to be touching base. We'll talk project that we're working on, things we're excited for. Then we'll move on to the Ask Us Anything segment. This is where you guys come in. So basically you can post questions in the appropriate thread in the Discord, and we'll go over your questions in one of these Table Talk videos. And then we'll get to the subject of this video. And for this time around, it's LVO, as we said. We're mainly going to be focusing on Nick's experience there because he actually went to the LVO. But Ryan and I will definitely have some thoughts. And then we'll end with some closing thoughts as well on the video and on things we're looking forward to in the future. Okay, so let's start with the touching base part. First of all, guys, what's up? We usually start with our drinks here. Nick, you're the fresh guest here, so tell us what drink did you bring for this video?
I am just keeping to the classics. I'm drinking a Dalmore, just a nice scotch from with the ice, or I'm sorry, the stones, so not watered down or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, fancy. Ryan?
Yeah.
Nice. I am drinking my go-to house drink of a caipirinha, Brazilian kind of version of I guess you could say somewhere between a mojito and a margarita, but they're probably offended by hearing that. But I think it's actually the best of the three. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm drinking something very simple. It's the blood oranges are back in season, and I love blood orange, so I'm drinking something based on blood orange, and I added Crodino. I don't know whether you know the drink. It's very small red bitter, I guess. Lots of sugar to make it drinkable though, so it's a little bit too sweet for my tastes. But as you know, usually no alcohol in it, so it could definitely use some alcohol this time around. Anything else you guys want to share before we move on to Warhammer related stuff? Anything else you want to tell us about what's been going on in your lives?
Nick, when's the last time you were on? I guess we've done a couple tournament things, but it's been a minute, right?
Yeah, it has been quite a while. It's just been all around pretty busy, honestly, with work picking up, and then getting super involved in like different tournament scenes and training for worlds and things like that. So it's been hectic. I know we were trying to stay outside of Warhammer, but it always comes back, right? Drags you back in.
It does. Ryan and I were talking in our last video, and by the time that this video goes live, people should have seen that video, or should be able to at least. We talked about card games, digital card games, and Ryan's playing Marvel Snap now, and I'm playing Hearthstone. And I'm pretty sure you played Hearthstone as well, right?
Yeah, I did a little Hearthstone.
What is the
yeah,
right
I
pronunciation?
usually do. I say Hearthstone. I did Hearthstone for a bit, but then I mostly stick to the battlegrounds. I stopped chasing the cards because like I get impatient, so I just like buy 100 packs at a time, and I just sit there and smash the open. And that was unhealthy for my wallet. So I stopped doing that and just stuck to the battlegrounds.
Okay.
You know what they did with Marvel Snap is because it's the makers of Hearthstone. You can't like win by having more money.
That's
the only
not a
way
game I want to play.
I mean, you technically you could have a little bit of a boost, but it's not like a pay to play kind of thing. For the most part, you're just paying to progress in your tree, but it's so slow, the drip of new cards that you end up getting, and there's no packs to open. So pretty much it levels that out for most people. So
So a
it's
slow
really
drip, pay to play.
well, no, I mean it's you're not buying the cards you want, and you're not opening packs. So the only thing that really gives you an advantage over other people is how long you've been playing. The longer you've been playing, the more access to cards you have. It's not based on how much money you spend for the most part. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
Really,
nice.
I think really I spent the money just to hear that Dwarfia legendary, or hear him go bam.
Legendary.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I spent the money. So
Yeah.
it's just sweet ASMR right in my ears. Like, oof, love it.
Wow.
Golden common.
That's right. Rare.
Yeah. The red is amazing, right?
So good
Yeah.
every time.
Okay, moving on to Warhammer projects. Ryan and Nick, you're both looking forward to new play, or not looking forward to, I guess, but you're both starting new armies, right?
Yes. I finally did it, everyone. I promised I'd put them on the shelves, and the feck are on the shelves.
Not for
I've
this video, but for all the upcoming ones.
Yeah. No, they're on the shelf now. Oh yeah, that's true. LVO. Yeah.
Yeah.
Upcoming, yeah, it's on the shelf, and for now we're going with the Git Boys, the Spider Rider good lads.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
You didn't
Ethan,
you didn't sound very excited by it though
I ha
when we talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all about the new getting used to it.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to avoid the destruction mindset of charge in and win or lose. So I'm more of a techie type player. I like
Yeah.
to have a toolbox and all that stuff. So I'm finding that balance to keep it interesting. It does what it does right now. It's pretty slappy, but I'm still pretty new to it. So I'm trying to find the joys of doing it and that balance of still making competitive lists while not losing games.
Yeah. I think that's something that we all have in common, right? We kind of love armies that you can tech stuff into, or that feels kind of techy.
Mhm.
I do feel that Lumineth has lost a lot of their techie aspects. What do you guys think, as a side question quickly, what do you guys think is the most techie army right now in your Age of Sigmar, obviously?
Hecky.
well, I know the Warhammer Weekly people were arguing it's Beasts of Chaos, but they just got off of saying it's Slaves to Darkness, and that book's not that much older at all. I feel like Slaves is pretty high up there in terms of just all the different things you have to know about what it can do in order to make it run right. And there's so many different modular choices. Beast does have a lot of tech in it, but it's not exactly what I would call modular. Um, Honestly, they keep making the armies techier. So for the most part, like look at what they did with Gits. Um, and I have a feeling the new KO book's going to be techie. Cities has always been techie, so I have a feeling that's probably going to remain. Um, Zinch didn't get techier though. Both Zinch and Lumineth either stayed
Yeah.
relatively platformed or got less techie, I would say. But they were already really complicated armies to begin with.
Yeah. Okay, so, and Ryan, you're playing a new army as well, or you're going to play two new armies, I guess?
Yeah, and just a side note about Nick's stuff. Nick's being diplomatic about it, but as a team member, so this references my situation too. As a team member, I'm playing for Serbia for Worlds coming up, and when you're on a team, you don't have as much control over what you're playing as maybe you would do if you were by yourself, because you're trying to look out for, let's call it, the greater good. But
Yeah.
it's also, you can't duplicate armies, so you're trying to fill out needs in the 8-person team format. And I'm not only playing for Serbia, but I'm also playing for a German team that I'm hitching along with for an upcoming tournament that Nick and I will both be at, but on different teams. So Zinch is already taken in both of them, but given that I'm kind of tired of the Eternal Conflag build right now, I'm not particularly trying to keep doing that, and I wanted to diversify my armies this year. So my original idea was to do Skaven, but my list is way too swingy and just too like me-ish with my Warp Lightning Cannon stuff. So I quickly switched back to something else that's maybe more reliable. And then I heard about KO coming out. I was going to do a Hollow Heart build with dwarves and Iron Drakes and whatever in cities. But then KO book is probably coming out in time to hit the cutoff date for Worlds. And so I started playing KO. The current book is a little unreliable, but I've still got a pretty high percentage on it. And so then both of the teams I'm playing for requested that I play Lumineth, and I said, well, I've seen that KO is a little bit less reliant than I wanted it to be. So I am jumping on the board with Lumineth. Not that I'm against it in theory, but as we both agree, it's not the most Johnny-ish of books. And the list I'll be playing, I don't feel like I came up with because it's like the net list.
Yeah,
The
it's
hero.
Yeah, I'm trying it out just to see how it goes, and if I hate it, then I'll try to argue for something else or just play other stuff in the meantime. But I would personally rather play Halon, more Wind Spirit, Kangaroos build, or an Emetrica build. But neither one of those is the official list right now.
Yeah,
So
cool.
we'll see what happens. But at least I get to use Teclis, and Teclis is super fun. So
That is true
Can't-
for you, for the user at least.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, for myself, I've been neglecting my AOS collection and my Warhammer collection as a whole, I guess. I'm slowly getting back into it. I'm working on my Lava Guard right now, so it's White Lions that I've converted to Stone Guard, and they have this lava on the base because my Avatar of Cain conversion is basically my Avalanor. So that's something I'm working on. I'm also painting up some High Elf Reavers as the Kangaroo Boys, because right now my Discord server is really focused on having these Wing Chargers in lists, and so I keep trying them just to be able to make good Tactica videos on them later down the road. But while I'm working on that, I'm also still working on the Horus Heresy, on 2 armies now, both Emperor's Children, which is my main army, and then also Thousand Suns, which is way harder to paint, by the way, because it's glossy red, that kind of candy red, and I don't have an airbrush, so that's usually a huge challenge.
Which one's glossy red? The Emperor's Children?
No, the Emperor's Children is beautiful purple and gold. And the Thousand Suns is gold and candy red.
Oh, I
The name
thought
on the bottle.
was traditionally yellow and blue.
No, that's Ultramarines, the Smurfs.
This
No,
guy.
I'm talking about the Thousand Suns are the Tzeentch, right?
Right, yeah. In 40k, they're blue and gold, or blue and yellow, I suppose, not white, because they've been Tzeentchified. But in the Horus Heresy, they're still in their original colors, and that's red and gold.
Weird.
And a bit of black and a bit of white, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Moving on to our prospects. What are things you guys are looking forward to right now, since you're both practicing for Worlds and team tournaments? Is there anything else that you're looking forward to in the near future?
Yes. So when I'm not practicing with Gits, I'm painting up Ryan's Daughters of Cain. So that's my new...
It's happening.
It's happening. I'm excited. I hit a huge milestone that all of my scenery is now painted.
Ooh.
Like, so my vast collection, because I'm a scenery junkie, is now done. So that was a huge accomplishment. And now I kind of just sit idly like, oh, what next? And so like I have a big old Marathi staring at me that I can't wait to do, because I want to paint them with like realistic snake patterns of just random types and things like
Yeah,
that,
cool.
which will be a fun challenge of both airbrushing and a lot of freehand to
Yeah.
do like diamondbacks and things like that. So that's pretty exciting. And then then there's Gits.
Well, you're not going to be painting those Gits though, right? Unless you fill in first. You're borrowing them.
Yeah, so I won't be buying these. It's going to be borrowing from other people.
Okay.
The only things I'll paint is if like I have to spot fill something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with the? Because I remember last time we actually met in person here in Antwerp. You guys were debating whether you were going to paint his Daughters of Cain army or not. So what's the deal here? What's happening?
So we've embarked in the barter system. So I had in my head, I was like, oh, I want to play Tzeentch. I'm excited for the book. I bought the battle tome and everything, and I watched it. I played against him. I watched him, and I was like, I never want to play this army ever in my life. This is the exact opposite of fun for me. And so they've been on my shelf for they are very dusty. And Ryan, bit by bit, is like, hey, do you got some Chaos Spawns I can borrow? Hey, you got some flavors I can borrow? And then we came to the point I was like, just keep them and paint them. I don't care. And then in return, I've taken his daughters. So it's just armies we both decided we're never playing. And then so I've picked those up. It's slowly growing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
The
you kind
problem
of.
is I already have almost all the Zinch that I
Yeah.
need. So beyond those 6 Flamers and 2 Chaos Spawns, I'm pretty good. So I'm probably just going to end up selling the army to Nick is what's going to end up happening, whatever he needs, and I'll just keep the rest. Because I don't think Daughters is my thing. You have access to it in Har-Koran and cities, but I'm probably about to lose that too. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the new cities book, but I'm not particularly hoping to hang on. I'll tell you what would have made a difference. If they had made Harpies battle line, I would have wanted to play them, but they didn't. And so I like Harpies a lot, and I would have been super into that kind of army, but you just can't make it.
What's your collection looking like for the daughters? Do you have everything?
I don't have Witch Elf Sisters of Slaughter really. I had mainly snakes and harpies, plus some of the buff wagons and all the heroes, Marathi, and a bunch of Doomfire Warlocks, but they're also Dark Riders in cities, or at least have been. So Nick has taken over all the snakes, Marathi, and the buff pieces, and hasn't taken any of the Doomfires or the harpies. So that's where we're kind of sitting on that. And I also have a unit of Shadow Stalkers, which I really still like.
Oh yeah. Those are great. Yeah, the teleporting guys, right?
Yeah, anything. Basically, I like things that move well, and so Daughters is kind of a slow army if you're not using the faster stuff. And I just wish they had made it more mobile, like that you could make a whole army built around mobility, but they just didn't. So
yeah.
Now I hear you like mobility. Have you ever heard of Fire Slayers?
I have a Fire Slayers army, and there's a reason I haven't ever played it. I want them to make those mini dross. As soon as they make mini dross, I'm in. So
It just gave you salamanders. What more do you want?
it's not Fire Slayer.
It's Fire E.
But I can't use them legally. Anyway, let me show you my most recent Ironclad. It's not done, but I'll show you my Iron. This is what I've been using at the tournaments. My whole thing is this black and yellow thing. I had to build or use extra scenery from some of the scenery that you buy that you came with, like Dominion and whatever, to support it, because these things are super unstable. But the general idea is that my guys think they're using either gold, that this green stuff is actually Skaven Warp Lightning, but they think it's either gold. So they're actually just harnessing Skaven Warp. Maybe that's why I roll so randomly when I'm playing with them. But no, that's what's going on with that army. I need to clean up. It's very rough, but I rushed it to get it ready for a tournament. So
yeah, cool.
That's the answer to that.
For myself, geez, I gotta say the new Seraphon is really tempting me.
Really?
Just model-wise.
Yeah, we don't really know the rules yet.
No, I honestly really can't afford another army because I'm already deep into 2.5 of armies. So I bought this huge new bulk of Sylvaneth units, and I haven't touched any of them. I haven't even played a game with the new units yet. So I really need to be disciplined here for that buy and just get working on that. But it's, you know the feeling, right? You just want something new. Ideneth keeps pulling me in. Slaves to Darkness is looking so cool right now. It's nice to have this kind of different allegiance, I guess. I have 2 Order armies, 1 Death army. It would be very cool to have a Chaos army as well, because they always tempt me. The Corn one's probably going to tempt me as well, because I just love the idea of running forwards and just fighting. And then secretly there's all these other rules happening behind the curtain, and that's kind of the bread and butter of your army. But I love the idea that it's just simply bloodshed. But yeah, so nothing to look forward to. Yeah, just gotta work on what I already bought, I guess.
Yeah, well, always first.
as soon as Malarian's army or Chaos Dwarfs come out, I'm not going to be able to keep holding back.
No.
I've been waiting for both of those for a hot minute
Yes.
now,
Yeah.
and I will probably buy at least 2 of everything for that army when it comes out.
Yeah, the Malarian army. I mean, obviously it still depends on aesthetics for me, but yeah, that is going to be tough to hold off on. Yeah, a friend of mine plays Dark Elves in City, so I'm pretty sure he'll buy into it as well. I'm secretly hoping for a Lumineth box, like Malarian versus Tyrion, the good old fight between those two, the good old duel. But yeah, if that's true, if that ends up being the case, then we're not expecting it in the near future.
Yeah, but you get a battle tome every like 8 months.
So yeah, how long do we still have? Like 6 months now, realistically, 5. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys care to share, or are we moving on to the questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do the questions.
Okay.
Let them rip.
So I only wrote down 3 for this video because I figured we'd spent a good amount of time already on the LVO. So the first question is, can we get the story of how you guys met Fashionable Beard Convention by Slam Tackle? I figured this is the best time to put this question in because we've been waiting on this question for a while, or been holding off on this question, I guess. But I just thought, now that we have Nick around, it's a double story, right? So maybe I should let you guys go first because you guys know each other much longer than you guys know me.
Yeah, so from my perspective of this story, I was minding my own business at a tournament, and then some creep walked up and heard English and started chatting me up, and I thought, well, this is unsettling. And so, no, I naturally gravitated to the other American in the room, and then he convinced me through shadow magic to give him a ride home. I don't know. I still to this day have no idea how he managed to do it. And I love how we all instinctively just started doing this at the same time. So I gave him a ride home, and then we started playing. And then I always do that classic, like, oh, hey man, great game. Let's get a game offline. You know, like maybe give me your number. Never follow through. I never do it. I have to be pursued. I'm a very fancy lady like that. So if people don't hit me up for like a game, and they have to be really determined, like I'm not going to put any effort into it. I'm a bad friend. And so then he followed up, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's have a game. And then he shows up, and then he's all like excited, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, hey, let's have it. You want a beer? And the background to this that he didn't know is I had gone out the night before, and I was wicked hungover. Like it was just like death. I was like barely hanging on, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna have tea, but I have wine. Like I didn't really have beer, I don't think. Like it was just something garbage. Like it was a terrible thing. And then Ryan eventually just goes like, all right, well, you know, it was fun. I'll see you around. And I felt bad, but in my mind I was like, I'll never see that guy again after this one. And then again he hits me up again, like, hey, we should have another game. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then before we have our game, I'm like, hey, you want to get a drink, or like let's get some food? And we go to an Irish pub. And because of the last experience, Ryan thought that I didn't really drink. And when we got to the Irish pub, he learned a thing about me, that I drink plenty. And then I think we were both a little sauced for our game, which was fun, which happened like 5 hours later after like some random ad hoc karaoke and whatnot. And then after that, yeah, the rest is history. We keep going and traveling tournaments, and then you came along.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, I'll let you tell the story because
that's a great story, Nick. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it was so
welcome.
good. Nick, what I
it
got
really
from
paints you in a good light, doesn't it?
Does it? I don't know.
I'm just being it.
What I mainly get from that story, Nick, is that you would do so well on dating apps because you're hard to get, but once somebody gets you, you're so loyal. I mean, you're donating new battle tomes to Ryan every time they're released. I mean, that is some sugar daddy vibes.
Purely selfish reasons, because like I've said before, I don't read any of the rules. I have someone tell me them. They're like, hey, you're not doing that, Ryan. I go, oh, okay. And then someone is always Ryan. So I mean, it's an investment. I guess it's like, tell me how to play this game because I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
The trick is Nick's actually 3 times as good as I am at playing. But I do know the rules better, but what does that amount to? No, Jonas, you said that I've known Nick for way longer, but actually that tournament I went to was just a spectator at where I met Nick. Was only a few weeks before I met you.
Oh, really?
So
it just feels like you guys are way more familiar, but that's probably because you live in the same city, I guess.
Yeah, and I've played against Nick now 20 times.
Yeah.
So
okay.
yeah, so we've played a good bit more, and we've gone to a lot of tournaments together. But so Jonas, I signed up for this tournament in Antwerp to go play one of the tournaments that Michael runs, and I was gonna go kind of by myself. I ended up riding home with the Dutch guys, but whenever Nick and I go out of town, this is before Nick and I started traveling together, we both like to actually see the place we went to because we paid for a hotel and whatever. And so I knew I was already going to be there for a bit, and I saw that you posted a random thing on the Facebook group, said you got this beautiful table set up and you're open to having people play games. I'm like, look, I'm already going to be there. I'm going to have my army with me anyway. Do you want to squeeze in a game before I go play this tournament the next day? And you were actually my 6th game of AOS.
Really?
I've now played almost a 200. So in that time, 190 something.
Damn. And you tabled me big time.
That was the only time I've beaten you. I guess that was the Ideneth was a hard counter to the Lumineth. But anyway, so I just kind of came over. We played a game, and then I guess I just headed back. But we kept in touch, and before I knew it, we were doing the channel. You invited me to come, do the Ideneth review, and then one thing led to the other, and here we are. This is actually my 25th video on the channel. So
really, it's cool that you keep track because yesterday.
I was gonna say the opposite. It's weird that you know that two sides of the spectrum.
He's just like a guy in prison. He's just edging.
Raymond, 20th game with Nick. Oh my god. That's what's really behind all the pictures in his house. It's just like madman scribblings on the wall.
Yeah.
I've got a spreadsheet now of all the armies I've played against and all the whatever. So I got good records of everything.
I have a friend that would go nuts for that phrase. I have a spreadsheet of, and then anything that comes after that. Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun time though meeting you. I was a bit nervous because that was the first time that I kind of reached out to a bigger community, I guess, because before I just played with friends and guys from Antwerp. I'm very happy that I did though. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, and I think with the what I noticed yesterday is that the 15th of January was the 1-year anniversary of the channel. So we're 13 months into the channel now, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I wonder whether YouTube would have let me known back then, because that was in the time where I did the funeral for my father. So I obviously didn't really pay attention to YouTube, but I wish that I had known, because I would have done something for the 1-year anniversary. So yeah. Anyway. Okay, so no fashionable beard convention, but still cool stories, right?
Well, linking it all together, then the connection with the three of us is we drove down for a tournament, and then you and I actually got paired up, which is in like one of the first battle reports or tournament reports that I ever did here, and then we talked about that pretty at length. It was quite a spicy game.
It was the best magic fate I've ever witnessed, or ever been the victim of.
My unbinds were unparalleled.
Yes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you and I didn't come down together, Nick, even though we'd already established that we would go to tournaments together. You came separately. I came down.
I was sleeping in my car, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you came down that morning and was sleeping in your car. And the day before, I came by, and Jonas and I went out together. And we played 2 games that day, and then we played the first game of that tournament the next day. And I was really glad you guys got matched against each other, because that started the whole thing.
Yeah, I was too. It was fun. It was a good game.
Yeah, sure was.
I just really noticed how good you guys are, but in very different fields. I feel like every time I get in a rules conundrum with Ryan, he's always right. So I've just learned to embrace that fact that he's always right. And then you, Nick, you came kind of, you're like, oh yeah, sure, tell me about Lumineth. And I give you the rundown and you're like, okay. And you just played me off the board. I was like, okay, damn son.
Well, the fun thing that I've learned to start doing is just like I'll just like throw like something that we all know is wrong, and then like just watch like just like it's not the rule. So like no, but that's not how you do that. I'm like no, but I could totally rally twice in the same turn
Yeah.
and just do straight face. It's like so it's been my
To
new
me,
it's my new favorite thing just to say ridiculous things to you during the game to see what happens.
I don't remember you doing this. When was the last time you did? Did you do it on Sunday?
It's so yeah, of course I did. It's just so subliminal. It's like you're like you can't. And I was like, wow, I could totally redeploy in combat. What are you talking about? Just doing that kind of stuff. And it's like, because especially when you do it to people that don't really know you, you do it with a straight face. Like, wait, are you kidding me? And it's like some of the most fun that I ever have. And then obviously you got to bring it back to reality. Like, yeah, no, I'm joking, man.
Yeah, and if you've done that enough to Ryan, if he's riled up enough, he kind of starts huffing about it, right?
So I love this table talk. We're just picking on Ryan all that.
Okay, let's move on. So second question. This one was actually from today. It's from Javilo, and he asked, is AOS competitively less healthy than 40k is? Which is a surprising question to me because I've always heard the opposite question. What he meant was not per se the mindset of the people contributing to the competitive scene, but rather he said that competitive games in Age of Sigmar kind of felt bland, if I'm interpreting his words correctly, where you're basically just repeating the same game over and over again, while in 40k it's not just about killing, it's much more about objective play and moving away and having these stratagems and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how in touch you guys are with the current 40k rule set right now, but I'm sure you guys have heard some things.
I don't know anything about 40k.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say about like how he compared like 40k is like worrying about objectives and movement, that's literally how I had to play Feck. Like I can't get in there and slap. I can do that one time, and then everything dies if I just charge it and do it. So I would say that the tactics and the types of games are different each time. They're familiar, like battle plans, for example. Like you're like, okay, I have a pretty good idea what I need to do for this type of army, but I would say that the games are varied pretty well when it comes to battle plans and different army types that you're exposed to. Yeah. I rarely feel like a rinse and repeat of like you typically have a hero phase strategy, like for example, oh, I need to do this in this order, which is fine, but how you apply it to the army that you're doing varies every single time, almost.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, anything you care to add?
I mean, I've heard the same things about 40k that everyone else has heard that doesn't play it. I can say, I mean, I played when I was a kid, but it's changed a lot. I can say it definitely sounds like our system is more balanced. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the secondary play is less, maybe less involved, but it also has less rules bloat, which is a trade-off, I think, for that kind of thing. At the end of the day, like to Nick's point, I can actually remember a good chunk of the games I've played. Like if you said, "Hey, remember when we played this game?" I can usually remember maybe not the name of the mission, but like certainly what events took place. And to me, that's that's evidence that it wasn't rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's. I mean, I don't play 40k, but I know what's happening on the 40k scene a little bit, I guess. I think the difference that you mainly feel if you're coming from 40k and you're moving on to Age of Sigmar, the list building aspect is just so different. And that makes games feel way different as well, because a 5-point upgrade can make the difference in lists. Whereas with Age of Sigmar, you're kind of stuck with these bigger numbers, right? If you can't take your 130-point unit, okay, then you're probably putting in some endless spells if you've not got any cheaper units. In 40k, you just drop a weapon, for example. And I
mean, as a super crazy Johnny player who spends too much time doing list building stuff, I'm really in statistics. I'm really glad that we don't have that discrete of that fine of a definition between units. That would be too much to modularize in and out.
You would explode.
I might.
Yeah, we would literally watch you combust in real time.
experienced this interesting feeling in that regard, because I came from Warhammer Fantasy when Age of Sigmar was first released, and I was so bored by it because the list building aspect was way too simple. It's gotten a little bit more complicated now with artifacts and such, but I just really missed decking out my heroes, because in Warhammer Fantasy, you could have you kind of spend your points in your heroes and in your lords. You could deck them out with all these toys and upgrade them enough so that they could tackle whole units on their own. And in Age of Sigmar, everything is kind of built in, right? So initially, I also felt that it was too easy or kind of boring. But now, going from Age of Sigmar back into the Horus Heresy, where the list building is even more difficult than in 40k, I must say, is it entertaining? Sometimes, yes, but most of the times I just find it bothersome, because it takes away so much of the joy, because it naturally forces you to be more competitive, because you just feel like you're wasting points if you're not doing it well. While in Age of Sigmar, I could honestly throw together a competitive list in 10 minutes. Right?
Well, I mean, don't look at me. It takes me minutes to do that.
Yeah, I mean, let's take my let's take Lumineth for example. If you know your army well enough and you understand the building blocks, sure, your lists will always have these same combinations of units, I guess. If I'm bringing a lot of Sentinels, I'm probably bringing if I'm bringing a lot of Wardens, for example, I'm probably bringing a Enlightener and so on. So you're combining these elements together, I guess. But you can definitely switch it up in that regard. And I do feel like if I'm going up against someone and they're saying to me like, okay, we're going to play in an hour, I'm pretty confident that I could come up with various degrees of competitiveness list-wise. Would you guys agree that if you know your army well enough, that it's quite easy to build a good list quick?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think maybe this isn't the greatest example considering that Feck had 4 models, but it was pretty, like mix and match there, like come up with different styles of play. I'll get back to you on how I do with Gits with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Gits is more my style army than it is yours in terms of the sheer amount of choices that they have available to them now, and all the like micro interactions. And I know you say you want to play more techie, but the funny thing is I've known you as mainly an alpha guy with the stuff that you've played. I didn't play your
Right,
Sylvaneth.
ladies.
What's that?
So that's right, ladies. Total alpha.
But Jonas, I spend a lot of time on list making, and so if you were to say like last minute, can you put something together? I already have like 10 lists already written, and then I would go and pick one of those that I haven't gotten enough practice with, and then maybe edit it if I needed to. But when I'm originally getting I usually start from some kind of foundation of I want to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if you're trying to make a thing work that people haven't made work thus far, you do have to be creative and spend some time working on it. So maybe I'm not looking to win so much as I am to prove that I can make a thing work.
Yeah,
and that's again the Johnny side of it. And for me, the list making does take a while to do if that's your goal.
Yeah, what I meant was not that it obviously takes a while to refine a list and to find out what combinations work. But say that you and me are battling in an hour, and I'm asking you, can you build a list from scratch? And I want it to be, mildly competitive. I'm pretty sure you could throw something together in an hour that would suit that kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, I guess my argument is more, as someone who keeps an ear to the ground on what's going on in the armies, I would probably just default to what I know is competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than I made it myself. You know what I mean? I get what you mean. 40K's got too many options for little subtle changes with units, but a lot of times you're bound by what you've actually built. Yeah. They're even more what you see, what you get, what you see is what you get than we are. If you don't have the right weapon in that Space Marine squad, then you don't get to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay, so to combine all those thoughts, Javilo, I think all three of us think that AOS is not less healthy, it's just a bit different, I guess. Let us know whether we interpreted your question well enough, and if you've got anything else to add, definitely put it in the comments. Okay, so last question for this segment. This is a bit Lumineth focused. That tends to happen on this channel, obviously. But I do feel like that you guys can put your thoughts to this as well. Because I think that you've suffered from this kind of situation before. So the question is from Thornabus. Do Venari and Scenari lists, so like Wardens for example, have too many rules for their basic units? For example, Wardens have Power of Fish, Wall of Blades, are Wizards, etc, etc, etc. Do you think that even with the new book, that Lumineth units, basic Lumineth units, have too much going on their War Scrolls?
Nick, what as the least Lumineth of the three of us, what is your opinion on this before we color your decision? You're kind of unbiased.
Yeah.
So I've never played Lumineth, like I haven't piloted them. So from an opponent's perspective, it's pretty easy to remember what they do. So maybe that translates into no, they don't have too many rules, just because I know what your Wardens are going to do, and it's very easy for me to manage that or account for it. I could see someone fresh getting into it could have a hard time remembering to do all the things that they do. So yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on skill level. I don't think it's overly complicated that you couldn't actually get there. I think it probably takes a few reps to get used to the idea of what they do. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it.
Right.
And Jonas, the expert, why don't you go next, and then I'll add in.
Yeah, because you're a bit of in the middle, I guess. What I like about their rules being quite sturdy is that to understand them as an opponent, you don't have to understand everything. You just have to know, okay, Wardens, they cast, and they are stronger when they get charged and then when they're charging themselves. And they do mortal wounds. Like, that's done. And then the way we accomplish those things is kind of up to the player themselves, not to the opponents usually, except for the Power of Hish part, obviously. But I do feel like because we are so forced into taking certain units multiple times, I'm quite happy that Wardens have a sturdy rule set, because otherwise I would be just so bored. If I look at the Stormcast army that my friend plays, their War Scroll is so boring. It's literally a weapon profile, and then, okay, if you roll a 6, it does 2 mortal wounds. Done.
Oh, exciting.
It is terrible. That would bore me so much. But then the opposite side of that is they do have a lot of units to choose from, so they can still mix and match, and if their collection is big enough, their games will still have some variation. Whereas the Lumineth I do have to agree with the Discord right now, is kind of, it repeats the same themes quite often, I think. You see the same building blocks returning, and they all do the same thing mostly, and they've tried to amp it up a little bit so the temples are more refined now. But I do agree that but I do think that there's a little bit too much stripped away from certain units and certain builds, that it does feel a little bit bland at times to be playing Wardens yet again and again and again. But then I come back to the point where I really strongly believe that the book is still incomplete. You can definitely win, but it just feels like you're not allowed to play in different ways, in as many different ways as opponents do, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it depends on which army you're referring to as
of
your
course,
opponent.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I guess to add what I can to that, I think those are both good perspectives. One, I think the question is maybe not intentionally by the author of the question, but definitely in the community in general, is there's this generic idea that every army should have a war scroll that is relatively simple, and those should be your battle line units. Just they're easy to kind of come to terms with. They're yours, chaff units, whatever. And there's this kind of general idea that should be a thing. But remember, we have 25 plus armies, depending on how you count them. And I think Lumineth's thing, sometimes when we did the Idoneth review, one of the things I said that was a battle trait of Idoneth, but isn't actually a battle trait, is their speed and the tides thing. The tides is the thing, but like this speed and timing issue that Idoneth has, and it's not officially written in the book, but that is kind of one of their things. And I think Luminous thing is that they are complicated. Like all the war scrolls are complicated. I'm glad that they moved the battle trait versions of Venari things and Sonari things and whatever into the war scrolls, because then it becomes a little bit easier to kind of like not have to there's this all these other things over here. It made the war scrolls even more complicated, but I think if you're getting into that army, you got to know ahead of time this is a complicated army. And so that's just kind of par for the course. But to Nick's point, if the player knows what they're doing, the other player doesn't have to understand every single thing about that war scroll. They need to know the net thing. That's what we do with everyone's army. I don't need to know every little thing about your war scroll. I just need to get the general idea. That said, like Nick said, that maybe this player doesn't really know what they're doing.
Whoa. Taking shots at the audience.
No, there is a type of person, or maybe Jonas, you mentioned it. I can't remember who said it. Someone said it's possible the person doesn't know all the rules of their unit, and then in which case maybe they're forgetting something. Someone said this.
I think he's putting words in our mouth, Jonas.
Yeah, I honestly don't recall. I would admit if I did say that. If I did, it was definitely not that kind of mean that I was intending to come off as.
One of you said that maybe they're just getting to know the rules. It's hard to learn the rules for the thing, and the implication is they're going to forget a thing or two about what's on their war scroll while they're doing it. So that's all I'm saying, and that definitely happens. Nick, you literally didn't know your own Gits rules 3 days ago. So sometimes people have to be aware of the fact that someone's come to terms with a complicated book. It happens. It's not a slight against someone who's learning it. It's the thing. The last thing I will say real quick is, as someone who does the math for everything, Lumineth is way more fucking complicated than most armies. Non-riders were one of the worst units to compute all the possible combinations, because you got charge bonuses, you got the sun metal weapon stuff, you've got which wounds characteristic they're up against and whether they're on mount or not. That's a complicated unit. And it has like so many different ways that you have to calculate what their actual output is. So if that's what someone's definition of coming to terms with a unit is, I would say Lumineth is one of the more complicated ones.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a great synopsis to end this question. Okay, let's move on to the Las Vegas Open 23. So what was the experience like at the LVO? So we've got some bullet points to talk about. So we'll talk about your personal experience there, Nick, because you went. We'll talk about the list, maybe the top 8 even, and the overall meta. We'll quickly talk results as well, and then what lessons are transferable from season 1 to season 2, if any. This was actually a question asked on the YouTube channel earlier today, and I figured we'd sneak that in here, and then certain things that you liked or disliked about the experience there. So first of all, what was your personal experience?
Yeah, so it was a surprise, honestly, for a couple of reasons. So I had a great time. I dramatically underestimated the ratio of 40k versus AOS. That I was not prepared for. So they put us in the same hall in LVO. It was this massive hall, which was just like at 8 in the morning bumping like club music. So I was ready to go. It was great. And then and I was really early. I don't know why. I just decided I was going to go early to kind of check it out and walk around. And as people started filing in more and more, the ratio of that room was almost like 90 to 10, 80, 20% of 40K to AOS, which I think in some other videos I saw, it was like 1,000 player tournament for 40K and 400 for AOS. It was just
320 or something for AOS.
Yeah, it was like absurd how different it was. I was like, wow, I did not really fully appreciate that difference. And yeah, it was really cool to see like all of my YouTube favorites. I was like, oh, dude. I felt like such a fanboy running around and just like, hey, I love your stuff. You've got the Tough Crowd Posse, which was like massive. It was so many people there. I got to see Coach walking around. I even took a picture of him like holding court. Like he had like 4 people, or I'm sorry, like 10 people just standing around. I don't know what he was talking about. I took it from far away. It felt like a super creep.
Coach, if you're watching this.
Yeah, exactly. Really appreciate it. I didn't have the courage to say hello. You looked busy. And then I did say hello to the Rerolling Ones guys, so that was awesome. Loved their videos, so that was really cool to see them. I think I surprised Bear, and I was like, "Hey, I love your stuff." And he's like, "Oh, hey, thanks." And then I saw all the rest of them. I'm like, "Oh, they're all here." So that was really cool to see them. I saw the Season of War guys. I didn't get to say hello to them. Again, they were mixed in with that giant, intimidating, tough crowd posse of like trying to get through. They're like, I don't want to say hi to you. I want to say hi to that guy, which is weird. So just got to appreciate from afar, which was pretty neat. Saw Ninjon running by. That was great. Didn't get to say hello, but he was just powering through. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to see all of those people, and then playing in the tournament was a great opportunity to see the different metas. I always hear about the American meta. I don't actually get to play against it, which was fun. And then it was a really good it was a good time altogether, and little lonely, I will be honest. I went there originally with my brother and one of my friends, and the idea is they're very casual in the game, so they don't even have armies painted up or anything like that, but they own them. And so that was like a milestone of goal. Like, okay, get it ready to go for LVO, then we're all going to go, we'll have a great time. You guys don't care about winning or anything like that, just go and have a good time. That neither of them got anything done with that because, like, work got in the way. They weren't able to get it done. So it was just me playing in the tournament. And so when I would get up at like 7 in the morning, because I'm weird like that, I wanted to be there early. They're not showing up till like 1 p.m. So I'm just kind of hanging out in the wall, just like, it's going to be great. So it was just hanging out, being a loner. I did run into some Dutch players for 40K, said hello to them. And it, as nice as it was, it even made me feel a little bit more sadder because I was just kind of like sitting by the wall, and then one of them walked up and went, "Hey, how's it going?" Like I was just some like little kid in the corner that had no friends. But it was nice of him to do that. And so once the tournament kicked off, everything kind of fell into place. And then, it was a lot of fun. I would say, yeah.
I got a question for you before we move on from the people. Some of the famous people are Warhammer famous people.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really hard to know how tall these people are. Like, to me, no offense to Vince, but he looks short on the show, and I've heard Vince is actually like 6 something.
Wow.
So, which I would not have guessed. No offense. The funny thing is, I'm the shortest easily amongst the 3 of us, but I look the biggest in the photo right now. In the picture, you're the tallest amongst the 3 of us. Yeah. And you just have the sky cam. But anyway, my question is, are people different than you would have expected? Like height-wise or anything else?
I think like from the YouTube videos, the perspective is different. But like Jordan from Season of War, for example, is pretty tall. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. There was another one that wasn't at LVO, but for example, when I saw Rob from Honest Wargamer here in the Netherlands, again, way taller than I expected him to be. The Rerolling One guys also very tall. Jack, for example, is much taller than I thought he would be. So it was cool to see them really. Coach, exactly what you picture. That one was right on the money.
He must be so nice to hang out with. That's the only thing I can think about when I think of Coach. How nice he must be to hang out with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
What I take away from this bit of the conversation is that we need to get you a Strategoi T-shirt for next time.
Yes.
And then maybe you'll get a crowd.
Well, funny you should mention. I think it's worthwhile, and we'll talk about the matchups later. But I did run into one of the guys that watches the channel. Forgive me, I don't remember your name, but because I don't have it in front of me. But it was a really fun interaction during our game because he was we were wrapping up, and he was like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Nick. I'm actually from the Netherlands." And he's like, "Oh, really? There's this channel called Strategoi with these guys, Nick, Ryan, and Jonas." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm the Nick in that sentence." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And when I went back and reviewed, I saw like his comments in there. I was like, "Oh, hey, how about that?" So it was a really fun turn of events to have it. So I got my little
that's
4 minutes of fame.
Mr. Vitiers in the Discord, I think, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it was a really cool experience to do that. We had a good chat about tournament etiquette and whatnot, and how to tell people to tough shit. That's the rules kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk lists. I did include your list in the PowerPoint here. Do you want to go over yours first, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
So my list, feeding time for all of you keeping up with it. I think this is like
Feeding time 17.
7 or something like that. Yeah. So slight change to this one. The big one, I'm not going to go through all the details because if you've seen this list before, you've heard it a million times by now, and you've heard what it does. The big change here is I added a block of 9 Crypt Flayers into the mix, and a Crypt Infernal Courtier. So really just try to bring back as many Flayers as I can in doing this. And then when you really pair this with the Grim Garland, so -2 to Bravery, the damage output is really, really intense. That really helps also bring some untouchable units like Factions Chaos and Death into a touchable range because they're usually sitting on Bravery 10. Now I'm bringing it down to Bravery 8. It's in the realm of possibility now. And then pairing that up with Unleash Hells has been phenomenal as well. So it was a really, really good chunky block of wounds that I can continually keep bringing back. So that was the big change in here. Mobility was a big one here, so being able to buff them up and move them up to 16 inches or 14 inches, whatever it is. And so yeah, a lot of board control with that. It was a lot of fun. And then shifting the threat a little bit, so there's not 3 dragons that are pretty easy to choose from, but people are like, I really want to kill those dragons because I know about the gruesome bite. And I'm like, yeah, knock yourself out. The flayers are going to do more damage than that on average because the dragon is quite swingy. But these guys are not when it comes to that because it's sheer weight of dice.
540 points of flayers.
Yeah, and so their big shtick is their 4s and 3s run -1 damage, but 6s on the hit are mortal wounds in addition. And then typically you're used to buffing up the Terror guys for the extra attacks, but if you put the extra attacks onto the flayers here, that's going to be 7 attacks apiece at highest amount. So 7 times 9, Feeding Frenzy. You see where we're going with this? It's just weight of dice, really just deleting anything.
Yeah.
So it's quite great.
Yeah, cool.
And because these are Galician veterans as well for Battle Line, you're also fighting in 2 ranks, so it's pretty intense.
So let's reference that real quick. Old Battle Tome, our old GHB, but new Battle Scroll points. How did you? What do you feel like that was the right balance? I mean, like, is it balanced with those points? Did it change anything for your list? Did you notice anything in your opponent's lists that were like, oh wow, this is totally broken or underpowered because the points are different for the GHB, or was it?
Yeah, not in any of my matchups. It wasn't too bad. And especially with my list, it was interesting because wherever it was added, it was also taken away. So for example, like the ghouls went down where the dragon went up. So it perfectly balanced out. So nothing really changed. I didn't need to make any adjustments. The only thing that I was shifting around was one of the endless spells that I would have used. So getting rid of like the horror ghast and putting in the chalice. But overall, not a big deal. Yeah.
Okay. And how well did you do?
Not great, to be honest, team. Not great. I did 2 and 3. Was not my best showing with the Feck boys. One of them was my mistake, but overall, the first game. Are we getting into my matchups right now?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Okay, cool. So my first round was against Nighthaunt, which was against Nate Trentinelli. I know that one just because he ended up being in the final 8. It was looking great for the Feck boys in the first couple of rounds because I had deleted most of his army. But then he turned around and just kept spiking those 4-ups. That Ethereal was really a bummer. And then also his heroes just slapped real hard on all of my stuff. So by the end of it, we talked out the last round, but it was really it was a real bummer because it was that like fading smile of like I got this, wait, what, huh, and now it's gone. And so I was like, that was a bummer. But it was a really good game. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun playing against him. I had a great time. Second round, I believe, was against Seraphon, if I'm not mistaken. Was my second round too. And it was a Thunder Lizard list. And this one I think was maybe an experience gap here because we were playing. I do remember this move, I remember it because it happened to me, so I remembered to do it to someone else. Was we were playing the Prize of Gallet. And he put all of his battle line on one side of the board, and I went, all right, I activate this one and make it a proving ground. So then he's not scoring in his first round. And then we had a couple of rounds where he was getting 0 points, 0 points, and then I was just deleting things one after another. And then I think we eventually called it early just because it became like a 20-0 victory with that one. Really crushed the Seraphon in that one. Did a lot of early charges, which I think were big. So, yeah.
Can I ask you about the differential system? I've heard in the States sometimes they're using battle tactics as some kind of, like, they count the number of battle tactics. Was this an element in this or not?
Yeah, so I don't remember all of the exact details for it, but what they were doing was it was weighted, and that was how they were going to like dictate shadow rounds. So the first one was always about wins. That's the biggest one, but then it also goes into how many battle tactics did you score during these, so that because it's such a large tournament, they needed to filter out who's actually in the top 8 and who isn't. So it played a big part into it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the third round of the day was against Ideneth, which I was very much worried about. It was a Killian King, Crondy, lots of Reavers list. This was also mentioned on the Battle for the All Points podcast as well. The guy that I played against talked about it, so here we go. I got super lucky in the first round landing. So I did my summons outside of 9. He put his Reavers on the side flanks. I put 2 Flayers down and landed both the charges and did enough damage where both of them were at risk of running. So he had to choose between it, and it worked out really well. He did some pretty crafty moves. He got my stuff in combat through a garrison move, which was, my mistake, but that's the way it goes. And then in another one, he put an Achillean King and the Kronspine into my flares, got rid of them right away. And so at that point, he's like, all right, I'm sitting pretty. And then it started to turn a little bit. And then ultimately, we cleaned up there and were able to talk out the last couple of rounds. I don't think it was a 20-0 win, but it was a decent win for me. So ended the first day on 2-1, which I was feeling pretty good about. Nice. I was like, all right, I like it.
Let's press pause real quick. Why don't we talk about that garrison trick that's still legal in the game? Because I think this is important for people to be aware of, and maybe get changed going into 4th edition.
Yeah, so there's 2 things that you can look out for that really popped up in that game, where one, the garrison one, is that if you have your units within range 3 inches, for example, of a garrison, that doesn't prevent an enemy from entering that garrison. And when they do, they automatically put your units in combat. So there's no need for a charge. So you're tagged, and then so you're stuck there. So it's a really cheeky move if someone's not paying attention there. If they're already there for the next round, they pop in, and then boom, you're in combat. And then they're getting the defensible terrain bonuses there, -1 to hit and save, which is pretty significant in that. The other one that popped up was about it centers around Desecrate the Lands, and the same thing like with scenery pieces. So for defensible terrain, you do not control that piece unless you are garrisoning that piece. So when people choose that for Desecrate their lands, they're not controlling it unless there's someone in it. So especially when you apply to like the boats, for example, with Ideneth, you cannot desecrate that if they're not in it. So it can be a potential gotcha moment that you have to watch out for.
Where is that written? Is that just this guy?
Please, you're the rules lawyer. No, but this is actually starting to pop up quite a bit in the tournament scene to look out for that. Where you find it, I'm not the guy to find that.
I'll take a look while you continue on, and then I'll pipe back in.
Follow-up question, if you're looking for the rules anyway, Ryan. How does moving into and out of a garrison works? Let's say I have a 14-inch move, for example, and I move 10 inches to get into range of that garrison. I enter it. Can I then move out in the same phase, or is that the end of my movement?
The entering a garrison's at the end of the phase.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so, or maybe it's at the beginning. It's one or the other, and it excludes you from doing KO's. Garrison's a little bit different, and I've been doing the KO rules. KO's a little more flexible with it. Let me just pull that up real quick so we can just nip that in the bud before.
Because Nick, was that the photo that you sent of the 2 big Stormvault-esque pieces in the middle?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those are ginormous.
Yeah, so he was really easy to get into him, which I wasn't anticipating. So I learned something valuable there. But yeah, so that was the fun stuff.
Okay, clarification. you can do entering a garrison instead of a normal move, so that's why
okay.
you can't move. And then, to be clear, in the last video that we just did, the GHB talk with the Nidus paths, that teleport is after a move, but this is in place of a move. And then, but leaving it happens at the end of a phase. And no, you can't do that on the same turn that you joined it.
Okay.
So leaving it is at the end of the phase, as in the normal sequence of there's a beginning of the phase, the rest of the phase, and the end. Thus, if something has to take place at the end, that's in that section of it.
Yeah.
It's not, at the end of your movement for that unit or something.
I see. Okay, cool. Yeah. So Nick, the two last matches.
Yeah, so the fourth matchup of the day was against Daughters of Cain. That was an interesting one. I think we had a really interesting dance sort of going on from the way that he set up the terrain. So I utilized a lot of line of sight to avoid shooty snakes and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And it was looking great, because towards, I don't know, round 3, round 4, whatever it was, he miscast with Marathi.
Oof.
And then off went the Shadow Queen, which was quite nice. So I was pretty happy about that. But then this one I blamed myself, a couple of mistakes on my part that ended up costing me some points and some battle tactics, and I ended up actually losing that one. So I was pretty upset about that, but it's the way that it goes. And then my last game, Sylvaneth. This was with our friend from the channel as well. And that was the last game of the day. It was really, really a challenge for me. It was a puzzle because this was the first that I had actually gone up against a list like this, and this was the Tree Lord build, which
Yes,
you
that
can
was
actually
such a
see.
cool list.
Yeah, you can see it in the Discord, and that list is actually picking up a lot of steam. It's been winning tournaments here in the Netherlands as well. It's been featured on Honest Wargamers, so it's all over the place. It's mainly due to its mobility, and it's really hard to lock down the Warsong bomb and all that. So it's a really challenging list. And so for me, what I underestimated was the bomb and how to screen it properly. So turn 1, lost my general. It was like, and credit to my opponent, he was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, do not apologize. This is the game. I messed it up. So that's the way it goes. You shouldn't be feeling bad about being a better player than I am. And so he played it really well. And then so for me, learning just how to screen against Durthu with an army that really doesn't have a whole lot of screens was a challenge. And so it was a really, really good game for me to learn how that list kind of operates and what they want to do. And so it may be a little insight to what happened after that, not related to LVO, is I played against this list again in Masters recently, the same thing. And because of that matchup that I had with him and some practice rounds, I now know how to play against this, and I did much better. And so it was good to be so thanks for that. I appreciate it. You're teaching me. Go ahead, Ryan.
But to be fair, the guy you played against was Mitchell, right?
Yeah.
And Mitchell has won the last 2 GTs in the Netherlands, and he's also on your team, on the Dutch team. So that's good that you did better, but this guy's also a fantastic player, so you shouldn't feel bad if you're still getting
No, I didn't feel bad. And the cool part about this was, for me, when we played, was my main goal for that was I want to play in such a way that you can't drop trees, and you can't do it. And so I played it and screened it to the point where he was unable to drop his free tree until turn 4. Because there was just no value in it.
Wow.
He was like, I can't get anything from doing this. So that based off of the game from LVO, and that led me to be able to pull things off like that. That it was such a learning experience, and that's I think also, to be on a diatribe here, is that's the value of losing games. And why you shouldn't be upset about it is that you can actually reflect and learn so much, and then play better in the next ones. So that's ultimately what I got from that last game. It was a utter smash. He destroyed me. It was great. Had a great time. We had a great chat afterwards about how to handle difficult opponents, and when people are getting uppity and that sort of thing. So I really hope to see his name again in lights somewhere along in the tournament scene, and maybe out here for once.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So quick update on the terrain thing. You're 100% right. What they've been saying. It's actually super clearly written in the rules, but because it's about garrisonable terrain, we don't play with garrisonable terrain mostly in the Netherlands, or in what I've seen in Belgium. Germany, we're about to do a tournament that has, I think every single table has some amount of garrisonable terrain on it, but it just doesn't come up too often here. But it says defensible terrain features are controlled by the player who has any units garrisoning them. If it's not being garrisoned, then neither player controls it. And here's the interesting thing is, that means someone's terrain piece, that's a faction terrain piece, can't be controlled except by the player who has it, because most of those faction terrain pieces can't be garrisoned except by that army. Hypothetically, I think it might be garrisonable by if you're playing a mirror match. Depends on the wording. But that said, a number of them have been losing their garrisonable qualities. So, for example, the Loon Shrine is no longer garrisonable. So that solves that problem. But Nick, do you know the wording on the Charnel Throne? Is it garrisonable by a non-Feck player? I think it is, because we put the Stormcast guy in our doubles game in it.
Yep, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. So that can be a really good, clever play, honestly, if you bait that out for an easy desecrate their lands, and your opponent doesn't actually. Of course, these are non-friendly games; these are the hyper-competitives. To bait that out for someone that maybe doesn't know that, and then there you go.
It does feel kind of bad to win a game on a technicality, though. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
But when you're playing at such a high caliber, winning is winning. That's that Fast Furious line, and it is Feck only with the update here. Can be garrisoned by one Flesh Eater Quartz hero with a wounds characteristic. Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't originally in the book. But,
or maybe we just cheated. Who knows?
Maybe, but it was whatever.
It's a double.
So here's another thought real quick about that, though, is that you can, if you had a monster and you wanted to turn off your own terrain piece for some reason, you could actually Monstrous Rampage your own. Someone can Monstrous Rampage someone's terrain piece, and because the defensible is written on the War Scroll. And by doing the Monstrous Rampage thing, to ruin or to rubble or whatever it is, smash to rubble, I think you would remove the defensible part, too.
Interesting.
So maybe that's a move. Anyway, Jonas, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, now that the experience is over, what are some things that you're going to take away from it going into Season 2?
Yeah, it's hard, like, since I'm not playing the same army, but what I really appreciate, it may be like some thank God moments, like Bounty Hunters is gone, thank God. Proving Ground is gone, thank God. And so I think with that, it's gonna make these different battle plans more challenging in different ways. But what am I gonna take with me from the last one?
I mean, for example, the terrain thing is definitely something that's still relevant.
So just in general, things I've learned along the way. Okay. Well, I think this just comes from growth as a player in general. It's not all about the smash, and I think this it kind of relates back to the question that we just answered. It's fun, believe me. I'm a destruction player at heart from time to time. The smash is great, but this one for me this GHB really feels a lot more centered around mobility and being able to maneuver your opponent and your army. I know there's been some videos about saying like it's very center focused and like slugging it out in the middle. Most of my games have not been that way. It's been trying to tag an objective here and get off of it and just keep it moving around. Because of the deployment zones, that they aren't super far apart in all of them. There's different ways to get close in like maybe on a corner or something like that. So for me, there's been a lot of bait and switches that I've been having fun with. Of like, oh, it looks like I'm going over here, but I'm really not. I'm trying to shift and do that sort of thing. So that was one of the big things that I've learned from the last season into this one, is to outmaneuver your opponent and really set up for the worst case scenario with the different turns. So play for the double. Like, you can, if it's great if you get doubled, but if you get doubled, you're prepared for that as well. So set yourself up well in advance, I think, is a good takeaway. Not really saying anything insightful here, but that's just what I'm trying to remind myself.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I was looking at the top 8, and I noticed that the Beast of Chaos really did very well in
Zangors.
Yeah.
Shutting it all down.
That was the old rules.
Yeah.
So And the old points, they went up a lot in points, and the herdstone and the summoning changed, and I think Beast of Chaos is going to have to reinvent itself now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah, because the winner of LVO was Noah Singh, if I remember correctly, and he
Mhm.
mentioned in one of his interviews that looking at the new rules for Beast of Chaos, that the things that he loved about the army were kind of gone.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Nick?
I had a great time. I thought it was a really well organized event. They were really cool about like their goodies, like so their swag giveaway. I got some cool LVO glasses from being international, so that was fun.
Mm.
Um, yeah, they had a giant Space Marine in the front, which I thought was cool. And forgive me if it's not a Space Marine. I'm sorry, I don't know 40K, but that's what I know it to be.
It is a Space
Um,
Marine.
yeah,
Astartes, if you want to be
yeah,
fancy.
whatever it is. It's blue and it had red eyes. It's a Space Marine to me.
Yeah.
So I took photos in front of that. It was great. I will say the Rio is the worst hotel in the world. But that has nothing to do with Frontline Gaming or anything like that. It's just garbage. And so, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Sometimes I missed my lunch, so I had to buy buckets of beer to stay fueled for my games, which was always great. I felt like such a champ walking around with 2 buckets in my hand, ready to go. They kept trying to take them away too. They're like, "Oh, no, get away from my drinks." Ugh, I don't care that. And then yeah, you sneak in the booze, so you just put like all the shots. So I was getting fueled by my team if they're bringing me like the little mini Jack Daniels to put in the ice buckets and stuff. So by game 5, I'm just like, all right, let's do it. It's great.
Nick, question for you as an American, a fellow
Uh-oh.
American who lives in Europe.
Yeah.
Um, what did it feel like to be playing in a tournament where your own accent is the default accent?
It was interesting to not have to say sorry, I don't speak Dutch before
Yeah.
we started our game, because I'm usually mistaken for a Dutch person. And so it was kind of cool, weird. It was easy to fall back into, but also felt yeah, a little strange that I've been so used to being here for almost 5 years. I've been almost programmed to not be the common tongue, if you will. And yeah, it was a strange experience. And then it was also interesting to start hearing the accents back from the U.S. It's like, oh, I haven't heard a Southern accent in forever. So it was kind of a interesting thing. And then also the costumes that came out of LVO, like that. I do appreciate the patriotism, the nationalism. So there's an American flag on everything, which is just hilarious. Like they're just wearing American flag overalls and just nothing else. And it was just like, all right. And I expected far more smell than I got. So it was actually quite pleasant. It wasn't terrible. It started to get a little dank towards the end of the tournament. You know, you've worn your jersey all day, every day. But it wasn't as bad as I thought it would have been. So it was overall pretty good.
That's because you weren't playing 40K.
40K was in the same room, so that's why I was surprised. Yeah,
Okay.
I will say I
Dang,
don't know which
really
game it
shitting on
was.
all the 40k players right now.
That's Ryan. Ryan with an R. Not this guy.
Yeah.
I'm accepting of all armies,
Yeah.
future
Yeah.
and past. There was one room in particular, I don't remember what it was, that just reeked. I walked in and went, "Oh, now we're at LVO." It was real bad. I forget. I don't know what games they were playing. I didn't recognize them, but I was like, "Holy shit!" It was bad. But yeah, you just see weird things. There was like I don't know, like a Titan that was at least 3 feet tall.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what is that even a game? Like, does it move at all, or does it just go up, deleted, like every other turn? It's just like, I don't know how you play with this thing, and how did you get it here? It was very strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was fun. Really great paint jobs. I really enjoyed seeing all of the armies on show.
Maybe
I
you can
will.
post some photos of
Yeah,
the armies on the
yeah.
Discord.
Oh yeah,
That'd
I
that
be
would
took
be
good.
a lot of
cool.
photos. I'll do that. I will say the dioramas for 40K were way more involved. They got like LEDs and screens, which I feel is cheating. But anyways, yeah, it was intense. What they were doing, really, really good stuff. Overall, I don't think we had any problems. Like I didn't have any bad opponents. It was just overall a great experience. I had a great time.
10 out of 10 would do again.
10 out of 10 would do again. With the nuances, I want to go with people that are playing in the tournament for sure.
Yeah.
There's something about like after your game, you run to your crew like, how'd it go? And you go, oh man,
Yeah.
got my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go with you next time.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's LVO. I'll show all the photos in the Discord.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to closing thoughts. Nick, you've been chatting for a while. Ryan, anything you want to add before we close out this video?
No, I'm just glad we're making videos, getting back in the swing of things again. Let's keep the momentum going.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy about it as well. It's been really good getting back into it and just enjoying it again, because it felt a little bit like a chore at some point in the past year, where I was pumping out content every week, and I just couldn't keep up with it with a full-time job and then some extra jobs on top of that as well. But this is a good momentum. I feel like we've moved on to a place where we make videos when we know it's quality, rather than we make videos because we need to do a video this week. And I really like that about where we're at now. Okay, and with that, we've reached the end of this video. Thank you everyone for watching. This was once again quite a lengthy one, but I really enjoy these table talks. Nick, it was so good having you on here. You should join in for every table talk if you're free.
Anytime you're ready, I'm always available.
Yeah,
I love them. It was great for him, and it was a great excuse for scotch on a weekday.
That's you. Yeah, that's you. Guys, if you've got any questions for us for the next one, please do drop them either in the comments or in the Discord. Let us know what you thought about the video, and keep an eye out for new stuff coming. Because by now, Ryan and I's video about the GSB must have been out, so go check it out if you haven't already. That was also quite a lengthy one, 2 hours and 15 minutes of pure strategic genius, mostly from Ryan. I have to admit.
Nick has already contradicted me on one comment in this video. So about how centrally located the missions are. That said, I don't know how many you've played in the new GHB, because we were both training for tournaments that were stuck in the old one for a while. So I've only played 15 games in the new one. But maybe you have more experience. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll get to it later. And Ryan, I think you and I just decided today that we're probably going to do a review of the Caradron Overlords book soon.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got that to look forward to. And Slam Tackle, I'm talking to you directly now. I'm getting onto that tier list for the new book and the new season. I promise. It is an easy video to make, and I'll get to that after this one actually. So yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.